Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on the phone from the new band, Minefield, it is Brandon Fields and, of course, Todd Kerns. And, of course, fans know Todd from his time with Slash. And on that, that's my cue to bring in Sir Alan Niven. Bonjour, monsieur. How are you?
Bonjour, monsieur. Pretty good, all things considered. I did have a little infection in my ear at the beginning of the week, but I think I'm getting on top of it, so I'm feeling better.
And I'm feeling great because today in Montreal, it was 23 Celsius in November, which I guess is somewhere like 74, 75, something like that. And it's supposed to be like that for the rest of the week, so yes. But, I interviewed Todd talking about Slash. And by the way, we've done two interviews where Slash has come up. We did Steve Lukather, and we've done this one where the name Slash comes up. And during the interview, I asked Todd about the new Guns N' Roses music he's heard. And I'm not going to reveal what he said, but listen into the interview. I'm not going to tell you what moment. We're going to play, find the sweet spot by yourself. But his answer and his reaction was quite interesting. But this brings me to this internal document from Universal Music that has been provided to me and sent to me. And it suggests...
Product release information.
Yeah, the product... And it suggests that on November 25th, 2020, so now, basically, that Guns N' Roses is going to release an album called Guns N' Roses, produced by Guns N' Roses and Karam Costanzo. And there are 14 songs. 13 of them are listed as a media count for domestic and a 14th as a Japanese bonus track. Now, I look at this and I'm thinking, this has got to be some dude in his basement who put together an incredible Photoshop, and it's just a whole bunch of BS. But you've looked at it, Alan, and what's your take on it? I mean, I'm voting BS right now, but let's talk about this. You've seen the document. What do you think?
I'm looking at the document right now, and in terms of paperwork that I've seen from Geffen in the past and Universal, as I see every year, the document looks legitimate to me. It really does. And once you start to consider it and think it through, it's interesting because the album number is scratched out. All the titles are scratched out, but the credits for composing are left in. And I think you're looking at a legitimate document. And the idea that it would just suddenly appear is, forgive me for saying this, but it's something I would have done. After all the ridiculous waiting for Chinese demos and all the palaver with that. I mean, my viewpoint on Chinese democracy was the biggest mistake was to release it at all. I would have rather it remained mysterious. I would have rather that the songs from that would be snuck into live shows, one here, one there, and just play with that and just make it even more full of mystique and even more fascinating and really whet an appetite, and then finally drop it if you have to. But to drop a new record without any pre-press or any palaver or any bullshit, that smacks to me of never mind all the rumors, never mind all the bollocks. Here it is, fuckers. And that to me is pure GNR right there. That is perfectly GNR. So it fits with that kind of approach.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let's, you look in the, and I'm going to deconstruct this document because, again, I'm not overly convinced it's true, but the fact that it would just sort of appear on November 25th, 2020, out of the blue, without any of the pre-hype, because you see right now what's going on with AC/DC, a lot of pre-hype, but in this digital age, in this Twitter world, in the Facebook world,
wait. Track 9.
yeah, well, I was going to hold out on that. You made me shoot my load before I got to it, but I'll get to that one too. I'll get to that one, but in 1970 or 75 or 85, you had to give it 2-3 months. So because Hit Parade or Metal Edge or Metal Hammer, by the time the interviews came out and blah blah, and you had to get the physical product into the store, and you had to make sure that the kids could plan to skip school to, there was a whole thing that was going into why you would want to anticipate or talk up an album. But now, if Madonna tomorrow morning puts out an album, well, the whole Twitter world will know about it, and she'll have sold 8 million by the end of the day. Guns N' Roses, Rolling Stones, you don't really need to have 3 months of, hey, everybody, it's, like the fact that AC/DC is doing, hey, everybody, it's coming. That's very, very old school. I mean, it's real. AC/DC could have put on, on November 1st, here's an album. People would have gone to Spotify. They would have gone to iTunes. They would have said, what the fuck's this? Is that it's a new AC/DC? Yeah. And of course, it would have been all over Facebook and all the marketing would have been done. So you agree that if this is a legitimate thing, that just to drop it out of the sky is complete genius. It makes sense.
Well, I wouldn't say complete genius, but I would say it's exactly what I would have done.
It's exactly what Gene Simmons would have done.
Gene Simmons couldn't have got it out by dropping it out of the sky because he needs time to make all the lunch boxes and coffins to go with it. But in this case, just to suddenly go, boom, there it is, motherfuckers, I think undermines all the cynicism of, oh God, they take forever and they can never get anything done, completely wipes that out, and will be a brush fire of excitement and interest, because this is the first record with, Slash being involved in a long time. I noticed there are no credits for Izzy in any of the material, which is a bit of a shame, because you know how I feel about Izzy and Guns N' Roses material and what he means to it.
Well, the credits that are listed, I mean, you've got Tobias on there, you've got Freeze, you've got Riggs, you've got Stinson. So if that's true, it would suggest that some of these songs have been sitting around for a while, which of course, listen, bands do that all the time. The last Van Halen, A Different Kind of Truth, had songs going back, I think, to 1975 or something. So, but do you think that that's...
Here's the other point. They've been messing around for a long time, and there was even a period of time when Iz and Slash and Duff were convening. And just as a small aside, they've had a little bit of COVID-free time as well. And if you check Slash's interviews, he probably is very consistent in saying that he spends a lot of his COVID-free time in the studio. So would I be surprised that this is legitimate? No, I think it is legitimate. The paperwork looks right to me, but I think it's quite possible that this has been put together, and I think they're approaching it in absolutely the perfect way.
Well, we will find out on November 25th, and then I'll bring up 2 more points on this. So the writing doesn't stress you out that Stinson or Riggs or Freeze or people that were in the band 20 years ago were on it. But what about the title? I mean, if it comes out and it's just called Guns N' Roses, it's self-titled, is that a good, powerful statement? Or do they need some kind of other title? Because to me, the one thing that does look believable is the title, because that would be a perfect name. It's like, here we are Guns N' Roses, motherfuckers. Boom. That makes sense to me.
Exactly, Mitch. You've got it. The fact they're just calling it Guns N' Roses is a very much braggadocio. Hey, motherfucker, Guns N' Roses. It's got a real never mind the bollocks, never mind the bullshit vibe to me. And that, I think, is absolutely dead on.
See, that makes sense to me. Well, go ahead.
I would hope that what you're going to hear can back up the braggadocio, that we're going to hear something punchy and exciting. And I'm really interested to see if Axl's demonstration of using Twitter translates into some of what he's writing. I want to hear some fucking politics from him. One of the things that
we definitely don't need a civil war. Let me tell you that much.
Well, true. But on the other hand, he's been very vociferous about what he believes in. And that goes back to Jungle. That's part of why I got involved with him, because I thought that it was a brilliant lyric and a brilliant song. It was one of the weakest performances on the demo that I was given by Geffen when they were asking me to work with the band. And once I spent time with the demo, I went back to Zoothout and I said, there's one song on here that we've got to pay attention to. It may sound weak on the demo, but it's maybe the most important song on the demo. And that was Jungle. And that really got my blood going. And I thought it was really exciting because he was a band and some rapscallions from the gutter who had a political viewpoint. I mean, go back and look at the video of Welcome to the Jungle.
One of the 25 most influential videos of all time, apparently.
Well, apparently so, which is, rather nice that it hit that hard, that it's still being mentioned and, 30 years later, or being put in a list like that. But, if you go back and look at that, while everybody else was, party all night or ain't nothing but a good time and floozies and so on and so forth, I had news footage put into that video to make it absolutely clear. This is a band that's got an intelligence and a point of view about our social condition.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, by the way, it's rock and roll all night and party every day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I need to go and check my Kiss albums that I don't have.
It's rock and roll all night and party every day, which is very important. All right, let me just finish on this then. The last thing before we get over to Todd and Brandon, and don't forget, I asked Todd straight up. I said, "What do you think of the new Guns N' Roses songs you've heard?" And he has a very clear answer. So go listen for that. But before that, it does say track 9 featuring Angus Young. You see, that to me is where it almost gets into the fake, like some dude sitting in his basement going, "Oh yeah." So I don't know. I want to believe that this is true, but I'm not convinced. But okay, so what do you think? Would they make an album called Guns N' Roses and drop it, surreptitiously upon the waiting folks, and then throw in a guest on it? Like, wouldn't it just be like, hey, this is us, and shouldn't it just be us?
No, it's fuck yes, and having Angus play on there is a nod and a wink to the fact that Red went out and saved AC/DC's ass by touring with them and getting them out of a sticky situation. You might be skeptical, but I think it's because you want it to be real. I'm looking at it and I'm going, no, this smells right to me. I think it's real.
Well, okay, so I'll say this.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but it's only one man's opinion. But my opinion is, I think you're going to be rocking hard at the end of the month.
Well, I'm hoping and wishing that it's true, because it's been long enough. This year with all the COVID and stuff has been hard enough. AC/DC dropped something on November 13th, I think, and then Guns N' Roses would come around November 25th, and then my favorite band, Thunder, March 12th. It just would be a perfect, on Michael Schenker in January, so it would just be like the next 4 months will be complete bliss if all this stuff is true. So, well, I mean,
and one more thing for you to quickly consider. historically the most significant month, most significant quarter of the year for major releases was always the end of the year in anticipation of Christmas. I'd say November 25th is a good anticipation of Christmas. The whole thing seems right to me. It really
It would
does.
be. And just real quick, would it also, when is Thanksgiving and Black Friday? Is that before November 25th this year or after? Because either way, it would really sort of drop in that moment of everybody buying shit, be like, so it would be perfect.
Yes.
Anyway, fingers crossed, and let us get over to the one and only Todd Kerns and Brandon Fields talking about their new album called Minefield. And I think the last 15 minutes of us talking is going to be an internet minefield as the different news groups and websites deconstruct every word and every gasp we just made to give it purpose and meaning. But there it is, folks. If you just want meaning, just rewind and listen to it again. You'll get all the meaning you need. There you go. We're done. Here is Todd Kerns. And Brandon.
Okay.
I hit record. All right.
You are recording, baby.
Yes, we are. We, of course, well, let me do the whole thing. Welcome to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. As you can see, I am joined by the one and only Todd Kerns and Brandon Fields from Minefield. And if you had any chance to hear our conversation just before that, we actually were navigating a minefield, which is kind of interesting. It's true. It is actually. So, bonjour, gentlemen. How are you?
Bonjour. Well,
Good to see you, Mitch.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Finally, I'm appearing on these things instead of doing it. And I don't know. I have space behind
you.
me.
Yeah, we're receiving you from somewhere beyond.
Yeah, I had the Mitch logo, and I had two heads here. And then when I did Rob Halford last week, they went, "You shouldn't have three bald heads on the screen." And all right. So here I am in this. So let's talk about Minefield. So is Minefield a band? Is Minefield just a project? Is it just a couple of singles? Is it, hey, we've got COVID going on, so we might as well do something?
I think it's a bit of all that. Funny enough that you bring it up like that, but it's, I don't think there's anything wrong with when you say just a project. Like back in the day, you would see a lot of your favorite musicians would do these cool other things, and it could be really, really cool. And to be honest, the thing I do with Slash, even though it's been going on 10 plus years, for all intents and purposes, is a project. You know what I mean? It's what as Howard Leese once said to me, he goes, that's Miles's side hustle. And I go, yeah, it kind of is, it's like, and it's not a bad thing. It's Slash's side hustle now in a lot of ways, but not really. You know what I mean? Like we all, it's like having, I don't know, multiple wives or something. And I think that, and it is funny because when Brandon, first the guys from Ace's band get a hold of me and they say, hey, we're doing this thing. And and I'm like, yeah, I'm literally, and like you say, it's COVID. I'm watching a whole lot of TV and just missing playing music. And they send me some riffs over. I mean, Brandon eventually sends me some riffs over and I'm like, this is really great. And we start putting stuff together. And it's like, and that's how this happens. I think that's the magical thing about this. Had there been no COVID, but this may never have happened, No,
I don't think any of it would have happened without COVID being a thing. So if there's any silver lining with everything that's happening, it's definitely this. And kind of bounce off of Todd's response to that. Definitely at the moment, I would definitely consider it more of a project because, the four of us have never been in the same room together at the same time. Me and Todd have never actually been in the same room together at all. So until
I'm not even sure he really exists, frankly. He could be like a
CGI.
Yeah.
Have we ever been in the same? Oh, yes, we have. You did the toque thing at the Brass Monkey. Yes.
Yeah, and you came out to the that festival thing we did up there with the Slash guys.
Yeah. Heavy Montreal.
That's right.
Yes. The thing I used to consult on before it stopped existing because now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well. They skipped out on it for 2020. That was the plan. And then, of course, COVID hit. And now I was talking to the owner or whatever, and there's just no money coming in. So some of the festivals are going to have to go bye-bye. They're going to keep Osheaga, but...
Yeah, it's a scary time for that. So hoping that even though things will close, I'm hoping there will be like these, revamped versions of them that will come up once things are back to some sense of normal, I hope.
Well, in fact, where does that put a band like you, like Minefield or individually? Because up here, 8 out of 10 bars are scheduled to close or expected to close.
Wow, is it that many?
80%. So routing, I mean, one night in Regina, one night in Halifax is not a tour. Right? I mean, that's,
well, it is, but it sounds like a terrible tour. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're going to see the same things going on in the States. You're going to have a night in St. Louis, and then the next night in Boston, you're going to go.
I know, yeah.
So the bars are closing, and I don't think next year stadiums or arenas. I just don't. Today they announced Sweden Rock. I just don't see it. So that sort of leaves that leaves that sort of B. The A market's gone, the C market's gone, so it's got the B market. So how do you navigate that, if you can navigate that?
That's a really good question, and it's been fascinating because I'm in Vegas currently right now. So, and every casino has multiple venues in it, whether it's a guy playing acoustic guitar over there or somebody playing piano over there. There's a duo or a little jazz quartet. There's multiple places to play. So a bunch of my friends in this city are musicians. So I've been slowly and quietly just paying attention to how things are kind of quietly kind of firing back up. And I don't know, some things are firing back up. I don't know if fire is the right word. They're kind of happening. And then I'm kind of tentatively wondering if it's just going to go away because of how weird everything is. But, it's there will be a new normal. And I think that will eventually lead to whatever normal is. So it's a really good question. I think that we have to just be sort of patient and just see what happens. I'm a relatively optimistic guy. So I always kind of think that, there's punk rock shows happening in basements right now. I mean, that's just guaranteed to be happening. That's the way it's always going to be. But for the rest of us, I don't know. A hockey arena or a stadium is probably unlikely for a while.
For a long while, at least in some countries. I don't know about Sweden Rock. I don't see how that's going to happen, because you also have to have permission to fly into the country and fly out of the country.
And that's a big problem right now, is people from America aren't really allowed anywhere. So,
well, I actually looked at the list on that concert, and I was kind of I don't think there was a whole lot of. I mean, Devin Townsend from Canada is coming, and
well, there was Night Ranger, and it's just good luck.
Interesting.
Yeah, Night Ranger played Sturgis this year, and I think they were one of the bands that kind of were trying not to promote it that much, but then it ended up coming out anyway, of course, because there was over 100,000 people there. But I think something that you're really going to start to see more of is, like you said, there's not going to be as many towns, as open as some of the other ones are. So I think something that you might see more of is bands doing maybe 2 shows a night, from where there's limited capacity, and it might turn into a situation like that to where you're spending more than just one night maybe.
I recently reported on a Steel Panther show, and I've looked at their routing, and they are doing afternoon and daytime shows in venues. So they'll have a 2:00 show, and then they'll have a 9:00 show. And I think, if it's doable, if it's sellable, that might be the way to go.
It's funny. In the age of electric, we used to do that all the time, because they wouldn't allow, as you know, in Canada, very strict rules about underage kids in bars. Mm-hmm. But we worked out deals where we would play in the afternoon to teenagers, and then play the same night for the bar crowd. So, I mean, it's kind of like the 60s or something, or the 50s maybe. You would play 20-minute shows or 25-minute shows, but I don't foresee that. But I think that, obviously the guys at Steel Panther, they are not idiots. Those guys have really kind of written their own ticket in such a big way that I'm sure that they know if they're stopping in Des Moines, Iowa, they're going to play twice if they have to kind of make ends meet. I think that makes sense to me.
It makes sense. So where does that leave Minefield now? So is there an album coming out, or is it just these singles?
We've got a 10-song album that will be out in February on Golden Robot. So we've got a few singles. The first one, Alone Together, came out in September. Home will be out November 16th. Then we'll have another one out first of the year sometime. And then we'll have a 4th single that will coincide with the album release in February. So there's 10 tracks, 9 originals, 1 cover on the album. So it's a full album.
He's a pro, this Brandon Fields. He's just rattling off information.
Hey, dude, it's from watching all those Todd Kerns interviews all the time. So.
Oh, man. I don't know about that.
I don't know if I've ever had a Todd Kerns interview. Have we ever done an interview before? I know we've spoken before, but I don't know if we've ever done an interview before.
I think you might have interviewed me for the night manager position at 7-Eleven. So.
at the Brass
I didn't get
Monkey.
the job. Long story short, the Brass Monkey. I didn't get that job.
Speaking of the Brass Monkey and your bandmate in Toke, or toque,
Yes,
whatever you want
toque.
to call it. Well,
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
spelled toque. But
Here's
But-
the French-Canadian argument. Here we go.
yeah, here we go. No, but Sir Charco in the band, who has
Yes.
worked, with Shania Twain and Mutt Lange and some of those albums.
Mhm.
Has he ever talked to you about working at that time and what it's like? And does he come to you when you're making a record, making a toque or a toque or whatever, Age of Electric, and offer advice? Because, somebody who's worked with Mutt, you got to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, not only. I mean, Corey was really how Kevin Churko became Kevin Churko, his brother, his older brother.
Right, the Churkos.
Yeah, because Corey was working with Shania,
Mm-hmm.
and Mutt was looking for an engineer, and Corey was in the band, and he's sort of like, my brother is a great Pro Tools guy in like Regina, Saskatchewan at the time. And he's like, so long story short, Kevin moves his family from Regina, Saskatchewan to like Stockholm, or no, I'm not sure, maybe Switzerland. I think it's
Switzerland. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then he does this apprenticeship that leads to him producing Ozzy Osbourne records and then becoming Kevin Churko, the mega successful producer.
And a great producer.
An amazing producer. So Corey produces all the toque stuff. I mean, he is as able-bodied in every possible way that Kevin is in a very different way. But I mean, because Corey wears a musician hat, he's sort of more that guy. But he's really, really talented in that area as well.
But does he offer you any advice on how to produce stuff and how to make stuff? And
it's funny because I have a lot of questions about Mutt, because what's interesting to all of us, I think, as music fans, is the idea of like, how do you go from doing the kind of like Highway to Hell, Back in Black kind of what we could consider bare bones rock and roll.
Yeah. Or writing a song like Do You Believe in Love for Huey Lewis? How do you go from that to
And then just watching that progression. I mean, there's a whole other world of Muttness that you kind of, if you dig down that rabbit hole, you find a lot of crazy stuff. But even that song, Lovin' Every Minute of It by Loverboy, is apparently just a song that Mutt just kind of gave to them. Like, here's a song. And they recorded it. I just got this lying around. I mean, it's really fascinating to listen to it. I think there's a lot of very intimidating stories that Corey would tell me, stuff like, where you come up with a really great song and you go, hey, Mutt, listen to this. And he goes, well, that part's great for a verse. The chorus of the song, the most important part of your song that you worked really hard on. He goes, well, that's a good verse. Now let's find some other pieces. And you're like, basically just, cutting up pieces of this child you just gave birth to. And it's like, no, it's part of this. And I'm like, oh, that sounds awful. But I mean, the proof's in the pudding with a guy like that.
Well, and I'll tell you, and we'll move on back to the band. Last year, one of these mega bands was on tour, and I was sitting on the bus with one of these guys, and he had a solo album. And he played it for me, and it sounded okay. And then he A-B'd it. He played me the other. He goes, but I've been working with Mutt Lange. Listen to what he's done. And he played the same songs, and the first version, which was his version, was, And then the Mutt version had all kinds of stuff coming in, and it was, and you were just like,
yeah.
And,
well, there's a reason these guys are 6th degree black belt of that world. I mean, what it's like. It's like I'm the guy that can listen to like Raw Power by the Stooges and go, no one should ever touch this. Sure, it sounds terrible, really, if you really want to get into it. Or the MC5's first album is basically a live album. It's like. Well, even the first Sabbath album is largely just all recorded live off the floor, apparently.
Same as the first Poison album.
Is that right?
Well, I think it was done like in 12 hours or something. It was, something like that. It was done within 2 weeks, like super fast.
Isn't that interesting? And then you imagine it being like played on MTV at like, high volume. And you're like, this song was recorded in a couple of hours.
Well, I always go back to the theory of we should go back to those days. Because you look at Sabbath, you look at Led Zeppelin, you look even Poison, right? All this stuff was done within 48 hours, 9 days, 7 days. I wrote it on the napkin in the back of the, and then you hear these other bands. Oh, we've been in the studio for 12 years. And you're like, really? Just fucking.
I know. I was actually like thinking about the first Zeppelin album, I have a whole other conversation about great first albums.
Yeah.
But I think Led Zeppelin they weren't together very long before they made that first album, like under a year. I think it was very, very brief. Like,
That's why long that Jimmy Page hadn't been in the Yardbirds. I don't think
exactly.
It had to be less than a year or two whenever that happened.
So there's like, multiple blues covers on there and stuff like that. And they make this, insane album. But I think that's an interesting conversation. And I'm always one of those guys that I don't like sitting in the studio. I mean, it depends. If I'm getting paid, I'll sit in the studio for, 12 years. Yeah. But the whole idea of I just feel like eventually you've just milked these songs of all their, joy.
Life.
And
Yeah,
100%. And
I think when you start doing those songs multiple times, you can hear the life like leaving these songs. It becomes more of a chore, to finish recording them or something. Yep. So
and wasn't the first Led Zeppelin album just a Spirit covers album? Wasn't that what it really was?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, both
of
those,
the second, third, and fourth.
The first two Zeppelin records both came out that year.
The what came out that year?
Both the first two Zeppelin albums came out in '69, so they pumped out both of those things in the same year.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is back then, even looking at Aerosmith and Kiss and Cheap Trick back in those days, they were still knocking out albums at under a year apart.
March and November. That's
exactly
every band.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly cool with that. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes the writing is tough to make happen, but you figure it out. Write some songs on the road, go.
Yeah, cover Honeymoon Suite. That's the way to go.
That's a given.
That's a given. Talk to me then, just Todd, for you in terms of that, because you do Toke and there's Age of Electric and you do some other stuff and you do the the Bruce Kulick the Cruise, and how do you decide what gets your attention and what you just sort of go I don't have time for? So I mean, in this case of Minefield, I mean, did he show up with like 25,000 and said, "Hey, I want you to play guitar," or is there sort of a commercial, or not a commercial, but an artistic point of view that goes, "Ooh, this could be interesting"?
Well, a lot of it, honestly, is because I didn't know Brandon in the initial phase of this, but I knew Jeremy and Matt both from Ace's band, and I knew Matt from other stuff, and
that's great.
He's fantastic, yeah, and they're just those kind of guys that I love, and I love the idea of like doing something with them. So, it's kind of one of those things that became real mafia as far as like, do you vouch for this Brandon guy? Do you vouch for him? So once they vouched for him, I was kind of like, okay, cool, let's check it out. So then it was like sending things back and forth, and I, and literally it was just a perfect moment in time for it to happen. So it was kind of like, we very easily could have like done a couple things, and if a guy wasn't as ambitious as Brandon is, a lot of times you'll do stuff and it just kind of falls by the wayside because of the nature of people's schedules and whatever else happens. But Brandon just kind of like we kind of hit it off musically, and that was sort of where we're at.
So let me ask you this, Brandon, because eventually I would think life's going to go back to normal and Todd's going to go do Toke and Slash and the whole thing. If Minefield connects with the fans and they want to hear more, does it become interchangeable parts without any disrespect and just say, listen, I got to keep moving? Or do you wait for these guys and say, okay, well, we'll do something in 3 years from now?
Well, those other two guys, they're completely replaceable. Just kidding.
What are their names? Those guys that aren't here right now? Yeah.
We'll just toss Matt out and get Joey Casada in there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We love Joey.
I think it definitely, so in the beginning when all this started, I made it clear to Golden Robot whenever we initially started talking about the record deal, there's an option that we have with them for a second album.
Right.
So I wanted to make it clear. I was like, look, even myself included, this is not our main gig. We all have pretty heavy schedules outside of this. I was like,
right.
I can't promise you that if we do another record that it will have this exact same lineup. So that was definitely discussed in the beginning. But as things kind of go on, I think I'm still hesitant, to call it a band because we've never been in the same room together. But I know just from now on, it's, we've done 10 songs together. It's the four of us on every song. So I feel like it's, it's not a situation anymore nowadays, thankfully, to technology, to where if you're cutting a record, you got to go spend 3-4 months in Nashville, hashing it out. It's kind of convenient to where we can send everything back and forth through email and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's not necessarily as much of a situation where it would tie up everybody's schedule if we wanted to go do something else, even if everything was back to normal, because we can kind of slide it in as we need be.
I have a suggestion. If you have to change singers, go hire Chris Van Dahl and then call the band LA Guns.
That I don't foresee any problem with that.
Well, Golden Robot already has one, so why not?
There you go. Oh God.
No.
This is right now. That's going to be like a fucking clickbait thing right there. Boom.
I know.
Here we go. Yeah.
The king of the clickbait. But no, jokes aside, and I've been doing this since 9 a.m. I'm wacky at this point. But so you do foresee then moving forward, Brandon, with the band, and if you have to replace 3/4 of the part, well, that's sort of the gig, right? Because.
To me, honestly, I don't mean to cut you off, Brandon, but to me, I think we all sort of said to him, look, we all have stuff going on. If we end up in the a good position, I mean, it'd be a good problem to have that, man, this thing's kind of connecting, and now I got to figure out how to tour this thing or whatever. Yeah. And I'd be like, dude, I totally understand. If I'm like in the middle of Australia doing something and he's got like some stuff that starts bubbling up, I'm like, dude, you got to chase that down. I don't know that, the cool thing about doing the record like this is the first time I've ever done it. I'm sure Brandon, because he's younger than I am, he's probably doing this he's living in the future where I'm still my VCR is still blinking 12 o'clock. But making a record like this, I'm kind of like, well, a second record could be made like that. Why not? It really, in a lot of ways, I'm very thankful I haven't said this too much to Brandon, that, I love my couch and I love my family and I love the TV. And when I finally had the ability to shut everything down, I was like, I am happy as a clam just to chill here. But Brandon came along and said, poke, make these into songs. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it kind of just like, now I feel like really kind of like, yeah, let's make some more songs. And we're still kind of making songs. So now you can take the ball, Brandon.
You can take the ball. Yeah. And Brandon, just real quick, we got 9 minutes before the Zoom shuts us down. So.
Okay. Matt actually went into the studio today to cut the final drum track for the 10th song on the album. So we're in that home stretch right now. And Anthony Fox actually just started on Monday mixing and mastering.
There's another talent for you. Love Anthony.
Yeah, very fantastic guy. And one of the cool things about this whole process is it kind of started where, it was more of just a business thing. But now, like, me and Todd text each other almost every day, and we're never talking about Minefield for the most part. It's always like Seinfeld or Star Wars or something like that. So
our honeymoon suite.
And Anthony as well. I've known Jeremy since I was about 13, so a little different with him. Even though this has allowed us to connect in a whole other way than we never had. But there's kind of the beauty in it that I've kind of become friends with all these guys now, and I can, talk to them comfortably about most anything. And
I've known them for over a decade. Not friends at all. They never. Never.
Oil and water.
That's right. It's all about the toke.
I owe Todd $5 every time I text him. So.
Yeah, he has to text me through Cameo. It's the whole thing.
That's right. Paid Zoom.
This is costing him $25 right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know.
Please send donations to Venmo right here. Yeah.
I sent him my PayPal to do the interview, actually.
It's a good racket.
It's the only time I got paid doing this stuff. Todd, how are the new Guns N' Roses songs you're hearing?
Nice try. I haven't heard anything, dude. I haven't heard anything, but I'm always very sort of like, I'm like you. I'm like hovering around, waiting to kind of like, I keep waiting for like, being in the car and kind of like, oh, you should just play this, just press play here. And we'll just be like, what? But no, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything, and don't know what the hell's going on.
No, I know. So and you know what? With an album, if it ever comes out, or if it's sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because it's going to come out. And the first comment on Twitter is going to be, this sucks. Because the angry people always tweet first.
They do, yeah.
and then it's just going to be.
They're tweeting about this right now.
Yeah, they're reviewing a 2-hour-long movie 5 minutes after it comes out. So
exactly.
And it's always the negative guys that come out first. It's always
you just can't read the comments on any of that shit, man. And that's something I've kind of had to instill in myself now. So
Yeah,
Comments
I
are
gotta
bad.
agree.
Comments are bad. Though
that whole-
I try to
the
run a
community
clean
can be
ship. I mean,
frustrating.
I'll be there.
I-
I'll be there in line to get that new Guns N' Roses record. I think Brandon will be there. I'm sure we'll all be very
of
excited.
course, yeah.
Listen, I'm a fan of music. I will buy
too.
the new LA Guns with Tracy and Phil. I will buy the new LA Guns with Steve and Kelly. I will buy the new Toke. I will buy the new Foreigner. Just because listen, we're at that point where we've got 5 or 10 years of you got maybe you guys longer, but the other bands, I've got a Scorpion shirt on right now. Will they be playing in 2030? Probably not. So it's not the time to fucking bitch and moan. How many of us would like to go see Eddie Van Halen tonight?
Absolutely.
And we can't. And
No,
that's going to be happening to Kiss, and that's going to be happening to Foreigner, and that's going to be happening to Dawkins. So just shut
Aerosmith,
the fuck up
Deftones.
and go support them and stuff.
Exactly.
And support Tracy and Phil. So they all deserve support because it's all fleeting and it's all going to end. I'll have a calendar here, and it's going to end. We got 10 years. So
I know, and it's like every year it's just some, we keep going through some horrific tragedy in the music industry, and I'm like, these guys aren't getting younger. Ringo Starr's out, like he was supposed to be doing dates this year at 80 years old.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
and Elton John.
Yeah,
some of these bands that are rescheduling. Ozzy has rescheduled for 2022. I'm willing to bet it doesn't happen, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
a good problem to have. Like I have no retirement plan.
No.
It's like I plan to be playing at an Applebee's at 80 years old in the corner. Is that Todd Kerns?
See, I have a retirement plan. I have a good retirement plan.
I know. Yeah, you're a grown up. You're the only grown up I know in this industry.
I started investing when I was 21. So in 4 years,
you.
I'm out.
We'll never hear of you again. You'll just vanish. Like Batman.
Hey, listen, I live in a village of 500 people. So I could actually just disappear. Nobody wouldn't even notice. It's one of my greatest fears when I walk the dog.
I would notice.
You would notice. But see, when I walk my dogs through the cornfields and all I keep having this thing that if I had a heart attack right here, nobody would find me for like 2 weeks.
Well, I hope your dog would run back like Lassie, and they'd be like, "Is it trouble at the old mill, boy? What's going on?"
I know.
Did
I don't know.
Did Mitch have a heart attack? Yeah.
But I mean, I know you've seen my Twitter every so often. You'll see, the dog walking us, me and cows, and
I like that. Yeah, that sounds envious.
It's peaceful.
Yeah, just appreciating life. More people.
I'm city folk.
Like
I grew up in a small town, and ever since I've been able to get to a city, it's just been city life. Like I just can't even wrap my head around the idea of the quiet. I'm in the suburbs in the city, but it's
I've never lived in a city, and when I do go to shows and I have to stay at a Holiday Inn. I mean, the Coke machine keeps me up at night. You just hear that hum and you go, "Fuck, shut up." But anyway,
cars outside.
See, guys like us that have tinnitus, we have to stay in the city because we need that white noise.
Exactly.
I can't handle it. When I turn on the heater at night, like when it gets colder in Montreal, it buzzes a little bit and I can't sleep. So all winter I just can't sleep. Anyway, we're at 37 minutes. This is going to shut down because I have free Zoom because I'm a cheap bastard. But Minefield, folks, is coming out on Golden Robot, a great label out of Australia, by the way.
Yeah, it is cool.
Hey, buy, support, tweet, reshare the videos when they go up. Thank you, gentlemen. Toujours un plaisir, as we say in Montreal.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Let me stop the recording a second, if I can figure out how to do that.